My name is Aaron, and in today's video I'm going to be addressing the topic of stress.
So my name's Deb Karen, and I'm the General Manager of Mental Health, Family Violence and Community at DPV Health. So I'm a mental health social worker that's been working in the field for about 30 years.
My name's Lauren and I'm a social worker and a counsellor, and I work under Deb at DPV Health. I've been in social work for about 12 years now and counsellor for 2. Yeah.
What is stress? At a basic level, at its definition, what do you guys define it as?
Well, stress I think is used generally to describe a lot of things, and normally people are describing distress. But stress can also be good, and that's a thing called eustress. So like if you're doing your exams and you're under a little bit of pressure and you feel stress, that's motivation stress. Yep. So that's what we call eustress. So distress is normally felt in the body. So most people generally notice some sort of tension normally in the hands and the feet, and some people have things like clenching of jaws. So you feel it in your body first of all. But what's actually happening is there's a nervous system, and in our nervous systems there's the autonomic nervous system, and there's 2 parts of that. And one's called the sympathetic nervous system, which drives stress. So what's happening is you have these neurochemicals in your brain, and one of them is a stress hormone called cortisol. And that comes out of the sympathetic side of the brain. The other part is the parasympathetic, and that's actually your calming and relaxing side of the brain. So what we try to do in our interventions is activate the parasympathetic side so that we actually de-escalate the amount of cortisol that's flowing through people's brains.
What happens if you get stressed too much?
If you get stressed too much, you can go on to develop anxiety disorders, and that's most common, but you also can have a whole pile of physical health problems. When people are really stressed, they have problems sleeping.
Yep.
When they have problems sleeping, it's hard, to get out of bed. So you might feel a bit like, I don't want to go and see my friends because I can't be bothered. So then you can get a bit withdrawn. And sometimes if you get a bit withdrawn, it can start to lead you down the depression path. Also, you can actually feel physically sick. So you can actually be vomiting as well as a result of your distress. And you might notice sometimes, when you're in a normal sort of situation, like even now, we might be a little bit nervous. And you might sort of notice that people's, they have a bit of an involuntary movement. They might be tapping their foot, might be moving their hands because, again, it's coming out of the extremities.
Hard to concentrate.
Very hard.
Hard to focus on conversations at school.
So the trick is to notice when good stress is going into bad stress.
Do different people, different ages experience stress in various ways?
So for different age groups, that's different things. So, if you're a young person who's 12 and you might be sort of thinking about going from primary school to high school, that transition with with not knowing what it's going to be, so not necessarily having familiarity and control, not knowing who your friend group's going to be, particularly if you're going to a high school that you're not having friends going with you, that can be a real big stressor for people. So at the age of 14 for boys and the age of 16 for girls, where they're the peak periods of risk time around stress and developing into mental illnesses. And a lot of that's got to do with our biology, because at that time, particularly, we've got puberty kicking in, and you've got all these new hormones and all this unfamiliar stuff going on in your body. You're starting to have different urges and desires than what you had when you were little. So it's all those transition points, all those adjustments that we need to make, and that's why your resilience and stopping and thinking about those other points of adjustment and how you coped with those are really important in helping you cope with the next stress you're going to have.
What are the kind of strategies you'd recommend for someone who's in a stressful situation or needs help with stress, and how can they deal with it?
There's little fibres just between your nose and your mouth, and you can rub them a few times and get some relief. So that's activating the good chemicals in your brain to reduce your stress, and that can be done really subtly, as can tensing and releasing your hands and your feet. So we normally say to people, tense your hands and release, tense your hands and release. So you can do those basic things. If you are really distressed and you're overwhelmed, so you'd be crying, you'd be red in the face, you might have your heart rate going, it's like your heart's going to come out of your chest. What you want to do is actually reduce your distress really quickly, and the best way of doing that is extreme cold. So what we would say to people is, how you can get those esky bricks out of your, you put them in your eskies or your coolers.
Ice packs and
stuff.
stuff.
Ice packs, yeah.
Yep.
Apply that as much as you can on your face, on your head. But if you just, generally as you're coming up to exam time, or, you might know that you're going to have a relationship with one, a conversation with one of your friends, that's going to be a bit tough. What we do recommend is lift up your physical activity. So moderate exercise, 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day is really beneficial for our mental health. But when you know that you're going to go into a stressful situation, running hard or any sort of exertion of physical exercise will actually give you a lot of relief. And if you haven't got people around you who you feel you can talk to, put it down in a journal or somewhere to get it out of you. Because once it's out, you can actually look at it and read and see things about what's causing you the distress that you can then do things about. And with young people, the best thing is to actually open up and talk to a trusted person. And whether that be your friend or your mum and dad or a trusted adult or even kids helpline, it's better to get it out than to bottle it in.
Where can young people go for help if they're feeling stressed? You just mentioned helpline. I'm pretty sure they could come to you guys at DPV Health, but do you know any other resources or other things like that?
So there's different services. There's Headspace, and so they're accessible to young people in any catchment area. They also have online and texting services as well. There's also a lot of different apps that people can download. A lot of them are free. And there's a Headspace app, a Mind app, and they can talk you through things like guided meditation, different techniques to help ground you when you're feeling really stressed and you're feeling quite alone in what you're going through. It can sort of guide you through what to do, and you can do them in 5-minute or 10-minute bursts, depending on the amount of time that you might have. And you can do them alone or with someone else. With Lifeline and Beyond Blue, they have the 24-hour texting services as well. Sometimes talking on the phone can be a bit confronting, or you might not have privacy. You might have family members or friends that can hear you. So texting services offer a bit more privacy, and there's online chatting with them as well.
I'd like to thank you, both Deborah and Lauren, for joining me today. The conversation we just had about stress has been quite helpful, and I'm sure that young people listening to this information would have found the information so useful. Because, it's hard to get your head around stress, and sometimes as a young person, it can be hard to know where to get help from.